Okay, hello all. So it's a last part in the series. So what we need to understand is a concept called as sealed, or it can be called as final in Java. So if one of the basic pillar in OOP is inheritance itself, then why inheritance needs to be stopped? Why exactly we need this concept of sealed or a final? Why we don't want any class to be further extended? So obviously there can be some theory that we all know, something like if the class class needs to be like stopped from the inheritance, ultimately we can put up it as sealed, or in case of Java it can be put up as final. But then why exactly we need it? So let's take one example to understand the concept. So the problem statement is, imagine there's a software company which developed a product, and the product is a reusable library of dashboard controls inside it. So there can be number of companies, like there can be Telerik, there can be Infragistic, there can be number of other companies which have their own kind of, you can say, products, which are ultimately some libraries they sell, which internally consist of some sort of maybe controls which can be used for dashboard designing. So let's say the product created by this imaginary software company, this product is actually sold to other companies as per developer basis, which means pay per developer kind of license. Now imagine one company purchases this product, and then further, instead of purchasing the product for other developers in the team, imagine that company tries to extend the last classes, node level classes, or I would say leaf level classes. So those classes are further extended to further create a different product out of it, which means it's like you have purchased a product, you tried to extend the so-called, you can say, end level classes further to ultimately go and create your own classes. It can be like when you end up creating your own kind of a classes out of these leaf level classes after inheritance, imagine you are not writing any kind of a code, you are just simply extending it. So if there are some compulsory things to be maybe implemented, you will implement it. But then if at all there is nothing compulsory to be implemented, imagine you have an empty class which actually has got no other implementations, but it's your own class. And then as you have all these classes which are like leaf classes inherited, you have your own set of classes now which are all empty. You may have all these classes clubbed into one library, and you may start using your own library in, you can say, at different locations. And then being dependent library, what you can do is you can always distribute the first software company's product library to, you can say, multiple different locations. So there can be licenses which obviously, like during deployment, when exactly we can deploy, how many dependencies we can set up, there can be other terms into it. But then in general, when we talk about it, it's something like normally being dependent, you can very well deploy the routine libraries that we have. So ultimately what we lose here is the first software company which develops this product loses something which is called as the revenue. So ultimately the library that the first software company developed, let's say, that needs to be secured for a misuse by extension or by inheritance. So how do we go for maybe securing this? Simple answer is stop the inheritance. So ultimately classes at the end of hierarchy, like we are going to maybe do the code writing. So it's just a matter of, you can say, writing some seal keyword. So just for the sake of maybe creating a field that we understand it, I'm going to create a new project. Let's call it as a library. So let's say a .NET Framework library. So simulation is, I'm going to go and create a dashboard library. So let's say dashboard controls, we call it as controls library. This dashboard control library, let's say, has got a class constructed. Let's call it as maybe a graph. So there is a graph control which has got some XYZ features. So there can be some function like maybe void plot and so on. So some logic here. Then this particular graph control which has some visual, and this graph control is, let's say, compiled as some sort of DLL by the first company, and the second company tries to purchase it. So second company may be purchasing it as, or develops, let's say, application on top of it. Maybe we will define here a console application. Let's say next. Let's get a new demo as in demo 5. Then this company purchases the first product. So let's say we add a reference to it. And this company can start using that dashboard control. So by simply creating dashboard control library, import first using dashboard lib, and this company or developer here, the first developer, can very well go and create an object of graph. Let's say graph, maybe I'll say line graph is equal to new graph, and I'll simply have line graph dot plot as in function to be called, which is obviously going to go and put some sort of visual on screen. Now the concern is you can create an object, you can call the method, all good. What if in one, let's say maybe one developer using one machine is going to go and create a graph like this. Ultimately, if at all other developer also wants to use it in maybe some other project, what this company can do is, instead of this company, the demo 5 company, trying to use this with respect to a developer, imagine what this company does is, they create a new project. This other company tries to create another library. Let's call it as, maybe we will call it as a wrapper graph library, or I'll call it as a wrapper dashboard control library. Okay, it should be word as lib. It is, we can ignore this. And this class, let's call it as wrapper graph. And this is going to go and inherit from graph. So the second company inherits wrapper graph from a graph. And then to simply refer it, their first developer is actually going to refer graph into it. So dashboard control library will be referred in wrapper dashboard control library. I'm going to say here dashboard library, and that's it. This is a simple empty class that is written by the developer now. And ultimately, since it's like almost empty, unless until there are some compulsory implementations. And then instead of, like, let's compile this as an DLL. And then when it comes to demo 5, in demo 5, we are going to refer here not dashboard control library, but we will keep on using wrapper dashboard control library. So any developer in the team or projects who wants to use something which is called as a wrapper dashboard control or graph in general will refer the wrapper dashboard control. And then in here, instead of we referring dashboard control library, we will have a wrapper dashboard control library in. Instead of creating graph object, I'm going to go and create a wrapper graph. And then we will be having here line graph dot, I don't have the plot function. This is inheriting a graph. Let's put F12 here. It's a simple public void plot. So let me refer the dependent library as well. So dependent library, I also need to refer. Wrapper is dependent on dashboard lib. And then let's recompile the entire solution. Now when I go to program class, I'll have the plot function available from the base class itself. So ultimately, I am not using graph, I am using wrapper graph, and wrapper graph is a graph. So ultimately, everywhere if I start using wrapper graph instead of actual graph, being dependent, I'll be actually be able to use dashboard control library in here. So imagine if there is some product developed, and if at all we keep on extending the product by simply extending their classes. Ultimately, it's like we have constructed a product by simply extending other product. So this is first product, this is the extension product, and then we are using extended product in other projects that we have. So ultimately, how can we stop this? So in case we need to secure this extension, what we'll have to do is we will make it final or we will make it sealed. So no more inheritance here. So if at all you decide to create this other library now, let me recompile this code. Let me go to our dashboard application, and now you will notice if I compile this, we won't be able to extend the graph because wrapper graph cannot derive from sealed type graph. So ultimately we can't do this. And the problem is, in case you have to use a graph, you have to create an object of it and you have to use it with the graph itself, which means we will always have to use, in this program class, we will have to use plot function with respect to the object of graph and not a wrapper graph. So this is how the code is going to work. Let me go and recompile the entire project. As we know, we can't actually go and maybe inherit this. So I'm going to comment here and recompile all the solution. So now if you notice, graph will come from dashboard control library. So ultimately this is what is required. This is of no use right now. And then we will have to keep on using graph. We can't extend it further. So takeaway from the session is classes at the end in hierarchy better be sealed or final so that no other product can be created. But this is something which we can plan if at all we are developing a product, or we have a fear that somebody who is other than the current company or other than the current team is going to want to be extended further and create a product out of it. So it's like without understanding somebody's code, you are planning to extend the content. So if that's something which is a security issue for you, you can always plan to have sealed or final. That way the logic won't be extended further to create other products. And then simple usage of sealed or final in case of Java is going to help. So as inheritance is the basic rule, so here sometimes not allowing the inheritance and not following the basic rule can help. So this is the end of the OOP miscellaneous series. So some practical approaches we try to see, some basic rules we try to understand, some rules we try to break in this series. So let me know if at all there are any concerns. You can always put a comment or you can always email me here at mahesh@bonaventuresystems.com, or you can call me at this number. The same number works on WhatsApp as well, so that you can send queries and I'll be happy to assist you or help you. In case you're looking for maybe having more series like this from me, then do send an email and then I'll see if at all I can create series for your learning. So till then, happy learning. Thank you.